So we're just going to spend 15 minutes giving you a brief overview of the user interface. Those of you who have used Revit before, I'm afraid this will be very, very easy, very basic, but just bear with me. Okay. I must confess, I've just dropped my mouse and it's slightly broken the scroll wheel, so I might have a little bit of a problem zooming. We'll see. So as I say, what I would like you to do for this week, I will put this model file, this Revit file, I'll put onto Mole today. Okay. What I want you to do is simply to open the file up, download the software, open the file up, and just spend the week getting yourself familiar with how you zoom, how you pan, try the tools out, look under all the different buttons, see what's there. Okay, you can't break it, don't worry about it, just play with the software. I think that's a good way to learn. Okay. What's happening here, I'm afraid, is because I'm screencast recording my computer using Captivate, it does slow my machine down, which is why I'm sometimes getting that ghosting effect. Okay. I mean, also the slight problem that we always have in these sessions is because I've got to work on quite a small screen area. It's quite difficult to get all the toolbars on there. I mean, I normally work on 2 screens. Okay. But we'll just do what we can here. Okay, so I've opened Revit here, and those of you who are familiar with Autodesk products, it will look fairly familiar. Okay, so we start on the top left under your Revit button. You've got some of the normal things you'd expect to see: open, save, export, print. All fairly straightforward. Okay, just as you would expect. Come out of that. Then you have a range of tabs across the top. And under each of these tabs, you have a different set of tools. Okay? And one thing that I remember I found a little bit unusual when I first started using Revit is that these toolbars and these tool buttons along the top, they change all the time depending on what you're doing. And at first I found that very odd because I was used to other software where those buttons always stay the same. But I did find after a little while it started to make a lot of sense. But if, for example, if I click on something in the model, you see that top toolbar immediately changed. Even though I didn't ask it to, it's changed. And what Revit is doing is it's kind of intuitively guessing what I'm likely to need to do. So the fact that I selected the topography surface here, it's then automatically suggested that I might be looking for these modify topography tools. So it's immediately changed to this set of tools. If I deselect, it goes back to where I was. Okay, so it takes a little bit of getting used to, but I think you'll probably find it will make a lot of sense once you get used to that. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to rearrange this a little bit. I mean, I must say Revit does benefit from having a lot of screen space because you do have quite a lot of toolbars. The bigger the screen, the better. If you could have 2 screens, even better. Okay, but You don't have to. Okay. Right. What shall I show you? If we start with the architecture tab here. Okay. And you look under that, and you've got things you would expect to see. Wall. And you notice what happens if I hover over it, a little bit more information appears. And if I hover for longer, even more information appears. Some of the tools, if you hover for a while, you might get a little video up just to help you understand what you're doing. So we've got door, window, component, column, roof, which I'm sure you can all guess what they do. I'm not going to show you all that in a lot of detail. Okay, that's not what this module is about. But you know, that's clearly all there. If we then go under structure, now normally in terms of architects, you probably would not be using this, because this probably would be information which your structural engineer would be producing. But you have the capability in Revit to make beams, walls, columns as members of structures. If we go into systems, now again, as an architect, you're very unlikely to be creating ducts and plumbing and pipes. That's more something that your mechanical engineer would be doing. Insert can be useful because this is where you are able to link in other Revit models, link in DWGs, or even bring in images as references. Okay. Now what I would say about Revit is, because Revit is a 3D BIM package, it's not a sort of good workflow to be constantly importing lots of 2D DWGs, because that's not how Revit works. Revit is expecting 3D information. It's not a sort of 2D package. So generally try and avoid importing DWGs. Okay, Annotate. So if we go under the Annotate tab here, what Revit means by annotate, by annotations, is it means anything that is not three-dimensional. Okay? So the basis of a Revit model is that it is a 3D model. Okay? So 2D information like lines or text or dimensions, you can use all of that in Revit, but it calls it annotations because it's just like drawing. Okay, it's not a 3D component. So under the Annotate tab here, this is where you have things like dimensions, insulation, text, various tags. This is where you sort of label things up. Okay, none of that information is three-dimensional. Analyze tab. We will be using this quite a lot. Now, the first set are all about structural analysis, which we will not be using. But then as we move along, we move into the more energy type analysis. If we look under the two tabs at the end here, we have the energy analysis tab and we have the lighting analysis tab. So we will be playing with these, we will be using these. So over this week, just go in, start trying those buttons, see what they do, see what the options are. As I say, you can't break it, doesn't matter. Okay, just play with it. You know, have a look. Okay, don't worry, don't bother about the structural analysis, and in fact, I wouldn't really worry about the more detailed analysis here. Just the energy analysis is the one I think you should play with this week. Okay, massing and site tab. Now, in the sessions next week, I am going to talk you through how to create a site model from scratch, from nothing, how to make a topography, how to place roads, how to make buildings. Okay, so I will cover that next week, but by all means, if you want to start having a little play around with that, that's fine. Have a little look at what the buttons are. Okay, but I'll talk you through that next week. Collaborate, we will not bother with in this module. This is very powerful, but the Collaborate tools are about how you work with other team members in Revit. So how you could have engineers in your model, how you could have 10 people in the same office all working in the same model. So very powerful tools, but we don't need to use that for our purposes. View is about how you view your model. So it's all about how you define how things look, three-dimensional views, sections, and again, I'll be running through a lot of this in the sessions in the following weeks. Okay, so by all means have a look at that, but I will explain it in more detail. Okay. Okay. So that was view. Manage. The Manage tab, this is where you're managing the project parameters, project settings, the more kind of slightly more complex parameters of your project. And again, we don't really need to play with that particularly much in this project. Add-ins. These are plugins or add-ins for Revit which don't come in the software as you download it, but you can add them on. Falcon, we may or may not use, we'll see. Falcon is a wind simulation plugin for Revit. We tried it last year with mixed results. For a lot of people it just crashed the machine all the time. It is a beta piece of software. It's something that Autodesk, they give out, but they say, well, it's not fully tested, but if you want to try it, you can try it. We'll probably stick to Vasari for wind simulation, but Falcon exists. And then the Modify tab is where you pick a piece of existing geometry or an annotation, you mirror it, you copy it, you move it, you scale it. There's sort of various tools for modifying.